Goodbye, XDefiant. I thought there was no better way to start this video than to just let the intro to the game play for one final time, as we'll never really get the chance to listen to it again. The game is offline now, and its memory will live online forever, as I never plan to take my XDefiant videos down, and I'm sure many others are going to feel the same. But unfortunately, this was a game that was completely destroyed by its own hype. I will admit that. I love this game to its core, but it was hyped up to be something it could never be, which was the COD killer. It could be a COD competitor, for sure, and I think it was. I think there was some concern by Activision regarding this game. But that's all it could ever be. It was never going to overtake Call of Duty. That's just preposterous. And yet that was something a lot of people ran with. It was a reason why this game had the highest of expectations and never was given a fair shot from the community or even Ubisoft. Like, this game wasn't allowed to make mistakes. It wasn't allowed to have problems. It needed to be perfect from the get-go. And that just was never going to happen. It was a game utilizing a brand new engine for an FPS shooter. It was doomed from the get-go. And yet we still had a pretty solid game. Like, I look at XDefiant in its final hours, which is when I got this gameplay for the video. It was still a fun game. To its core, this is a very fun video game. And it constantly reminded me why I got into first-person shooters in the first place. Why I got so addicted to games like Call of Duty and Halo. It had that essence. It had that identity. And it resonated with me. And I know it resonated with a lot of other players that are longtime Call of Duty fans. Are longtime Halo fans. This game just had that je ne sais quoi factor about it. And that's what made it great. And that's what makes it so sad that now it's gone. I made a video recently talking about myself missing this game, and I said in that video that this game has become a safe place for me. Not because it shields me from the outside world, but because it reminds me of what good games can be, about what an idea can become. Because we're so bogged down by the over-corporatization of every single game now. Games solely designed to extract money from its player base instead of just being good experiences at their core and naturally and organically fostering that financial success. That's what XDefiant was trying to do. It was trying to hook you in with its gameplay, trying to hook you in with a player-first experience, and then ask for the financial reward later, instead of trying to hook you in with engagement-based tactics, so then that engagement leads to you spending more money. And the problem with XDefiant was it had the right idea. Unfortunately, the execution was poor, and nobody had the patience to see it through. Not Ubisoft, not this community. Like I said, they were never given a fair chance. And that's really to the game's detriment. Because like I've said so many times during this game's life cycle, it's a great game. It does nothing unique. It's a hero first-person shooter at the end of the day. But it executes it well. It's fun. All of the different factions are fantastic. They're super fun to use. They're all different in their own way. And they all lend themselves to different types of playstyles. The weapon choices are all different in their own way as well. And it just created a wide variety of gameplay. That's what I found myself doing. I never found myself attached to one certain faction. I was trying out them all. All of them had their positives. A lot of them had their negatives. And sure, the balance wasn't there at all times, but the fun certainly was. The enjoyment certainly was. And that's what I'm going to miss the most, was at the core of this game, it was fun. It wasn't trying to bait you in with engagement style tactics, so that you get addicted to constantly earning something. It was trying to get you addicted to the gameplay. And that's what I cared about. Because the gameplay was fun. They did a good job with it. And this isn't me trying to glaze over the game's issues. The game had hit detection problems from day one. It launched in an incomplete state. We know this. This isn't news. But what we saw from this game over the next 6 months after it released was a game that learned from its mistakes, continued to grow and evolve and improve. But a lot of people just didn't seem to care about that. They wrote it off way too early. They never gave it a fair chance. And that is why we're sitting here today with this game being shut down. Because it was a game that wasn't allowed to fail. It had to be perfect from the get-go. It's almost like it was designed to fail. All of that hype was its biggest detriment. Because when it didn't live it up to it for a lot of players, they threw it to the side. Even though there are other games that are released now that are in worse states than what XDefiant was in, and they get praised. They get simped over. They throw all the criticism to the side and call you a hater. Yeah, this game had haters, but rightfully so. Who wants to sit and play a game that has broken hit detection? I still did because I enjoyed the gameplay to its core, but who am I to be upset with you not wanting to play a game that delivers that type of experience? But what I wish is that people that didn't like it had the opportunity to return to it, or chose to return to it when the game did improve. Because they were constantly working on hit detection issues. They were constantly trying to improve server performance. They were constantly trying to work on balance between all the different factions and weapons. And they were releasing banger map after banger map after banger map. That matters. The content was good. Sure, it was scarce. I'll say that. Their seasonal updates weren't really anything special. We got a new faction and drop feed content instead of a bunch of content all at once. It could have been improved upon. But again, like I said, everything had to be executed perfectly. They weren't allowed to make missteps. They weren't allowed to release seasons that were underwhelming because nobody gave them a fair chance. A lot of people treated this game like it was a $70 game, and yet it was a free-to-play service. They had higher expectations for this than they do of games that cost $70 that release every single year. That is embarrassing. But let's be honest, this was a free-to-play game. A free-to-play game that did a poor job of getting you to spend money on it. And that was its ultimate downfall. Ubisoft didn't see a path forward to this game making a ton of money because they didn't have the patience to see the game through. They didn't have the patience to see what the potential of this game could be. And I have a feeling that if they allowed Season 3 to be released, and they let Season 3 be the make or break moment, we would have had a different reaction. Because Season 3 was when this game turned around. I think the new Assassin's Creed chapter would have been well received, and all of the hit detection improvements were massive. They were noticeable. It made a lot of people question why they decided to shut it down now. Maybe in the new year, maybe that could have worked. Maybe that would have made more sense. But to shut it down in December, right when you were about to release Season 3, was just bad timing. It really felt like they gave up on it too soon. And as I've been playing this game ever since the shutdown announcement, I've realized that. They shut this game down far too soon. Far too early, way before it deserved to be. I'll never be able to forgive Ubisoft for that. One last note I want to mention here, because I think it needs to be talked about more. The work of Mark Rubin during this entire life cycle was honestly a godsend. He has set the gold standard for how to communicate with your community. I've made multiple videos about him. I've praised him every step of the way because I do believe connecting with your community matters. I'm sure by now you guys have heard of who the Savannah Bananas are, but their owner has a belief in fans first. He believes that the fans pay the way at which they do. So putting the fans at the forefront of the experience is what matters. That's what XDefiant was trying to do. That's why people like Mark Rubin matter, and why they are necessary to success of games like XDefiant. This is why I think that he should have set the standard for everybody else to follow. But unfortunately, because this game failed, I think companies will look at it and say, we don't need somebody to communicate with the community because it doesn't matter. It doesn't lead to more sales. It doesn't lead to more money. It just leads to failure. Even though I think everybody praised Mark Rubin's transparency. The amount of different elements of XDefiant that changed because of his constant interaction with the community was tremendous. The community would suggest things, they'd put it into testing, and they'd implement them. A perfect example would be Weapon XP. For a long time during the game's life cycle, people had asked for Weapon XP to be able to be earnable while doing objectives. And it took a long time for them to implement it, but they eventually did. And nobody complained once it was in there. They made the weapon grind feel a lot more rewarding, and overall, they just made the experience feel way better because they listened to the community. They made adjustments to how XP tokens counted down. Instead of them being in real time, they were in game time, which made everybody happy. A simple change that cost them nothing, just gave them a ton of goodwill. That willingness to work with your community and take their suggestions and implement them are reasons why this game should have succeeded. But ultimately they didn't. They failed. It sucks to say it. It sucks to come to that conclusion, but it's the truth. At the end of the day, I thank Mark Rubin and Aches as well for their transparency, their communication, and their honesty. I'm excited to see what they work on next. I'm excited to see what passion they bring to with their next project, because that's what the core of XDefiant was. A passion project, a love letter. That's how we can remember XDefiant. Don't remember it as a failure. Remember it as what it could have been. All of its potential, all of its bright spots, all of its memorable moments. Because that's what I'm going to take with me as this game departs. As we never talk about it again, as it just becomes a relic, I'll remember the memories. I'll remember the first time playing this game. I'll remember the first time trying out all the different specials. I'll remember all of the bright spots. I'll even remember the low spots. The terrible hit detection, the wonky servers, the terrible ranked play during Season 1. It's all part of the experience that XDefiant gave us. The good and the bad. And that's what XDefiant's going to be remembered for. The good and the bad. And I really hope a project comes along that has as much passion as XDefiant did. I hope a project comes along with developers that are as transparent with their community as guys like Mark Rubin and Aches were. I really hope a game comes out eventually that brings us back to the roots of what made so many of us fall in love with FPS games in the first place. But that's something that we'll just have to wait and see for. So that's it. That's my goodbye. I will miss this game deeply. I will miss loading into some of the best maps I've ever played on. I'll miss the gunplay. I'll miss the variety of different factions. I'm just going to miss XDefiant. Thank you for everything you did. You're going to be missed. Goodbye for one final time. This sucks. But that's where I'm going to end the video. I want you guys to open up down below in that comment section regarding your favorite moments of XDefiant. Let me know what's going to stick with you. Let me know what the most memorable aspects of this game are, because I'd love to hear from you. So that's it for the video today. That's my final goodbye. If you enjoyed XDefiant, if you enjoyed me covering it, if you're on this channel because of XDefiant, thank you so much. Honestly, truthfully, thank you for the support. I'm going to miss this game. But I'll leave it at that. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos from me, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
There are worse ways to blow your cover.